This video is geared toward the single person in recovery, and we'll be discussing dating, new relationships, and sex. These topics may seem a bit premature, but let's face it, many of you are going to date or have sex in early recovery no matter what anyone says to you on this matter. It's often suggested that it's best to wait a year before dating, getting into a new relationship, or having sex. Following this suggestion allows you the room you need for growth without another person distracting you. Many make the mistake of turning another person into their main priority, which can easily get in the way of the work that needs to be done on their recovery. Personally, I know I was dating before I was ready. During my first few years of sobriety, I usually ended up with someone who loved drama as much as I did. Though the drama caused me pain, I thought I'd be bored without it. A big part of me enjoyed the constant back and forth and playing games. Even though I was working an active recovery program, I wasn't even interested in the prospect of being with a nice guy until I was 4 years sober. At this point, I knew myself. I loved myself. I was independent and whole. Now I was ready. Shortly thereafter, I met a wonderful partner, and our relationship developed into the longest and most healthy one I had ever had. Am I ready to date? This is an important question to ask yourself. Self-honesty is crucial here. Check your motives. Why do I want to date? Is it out of desperation and loneliness? Am I just looking for a distraction? What can I offer a relationship at this point? Am I likely to get overly attached and dependent on another person? The best way to show up to a new relationship is healthy, happy, whole, not needing someone to fix you or complete you. Doesn't your future partner deserve you at your best? If you're not sure if you're ready to date, ask some folks from your support system for their honest opinion. You can come back to this video at any point in time, so if you're not ready now, this info will be here for you when you are. I'm ready for dating. Now what? If you're ready, get out there and enjoy yourself. Take your date out for fun activities. You may find it helpful to review the Recovery Action Plan from Module 6 for fun ideas. You might find the whole dating experience to be a little uncomfortable without your drug of choice. But don't worry, you'll get used to it eventually. I suggest taking it slow and really get to know each other. Many people in recovery are tempted to date others in recovery. There are pluses and minuses either way. Generally, two people in recovery tend to move really fast. There's a running joke at recovery meetings. What do two people in recovery drive to their second date? A moving truck. Even if everything goes well and you stop dating at some point, you'll be running into them at meetings. This can be quite awkward, especially in the situation where you've dated more than one person from your meetings. On the other hand, it can be a lot of fun to date someone in recovery. You probably feel like they get you and where you're coming from. Sometimes two people in recovery can have a strong spiritual connection, and that can be beautiful and powerful. There's really no right or wrong answer here. Each situation must be looked at on an individual basis. What red flags should I be looking for? Look for the following red flags in them and your own thoughts and behaviors. If you see these crop up, pay attention. This relationship may not be a good idea. Also, be honest with your support system so you have others to help monitor the situation. Obsessing over the other person. Controlling or possessive behavior. Extreme jealousy. Putting the relationship ahead of recovery activities such as missing meetings, isolating from friends, or making the other person your higher power. Using dating or the other person to fill a void or to distract ourselves. Thinking you can't stay sober without them. Drug users or heavy drinkers. Abusive behavior. This includes physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. If this red flag crops up, leave them. Now let's talk about sex. Sex has the ability to be one of the most wonderful human experiences. But it's also something that can cause great pain and sadness when used in a selfish manner. Let's discuss some of the beautiful, awkward, tough, and practical points about sex in recovery. Fair warning, some of what I'll discuss may make you uncomfortable, but we wouldn't include it unless it was important. There's a strong link between sexual abuse and addiction. Of course, some of you won't be able to relate to this experience I'm about to describe, but since sexual abuse happens at a larger rate for addicts than the general population, it's worth addressing. Unfortunately, sometimes it's the chicken or the egg conundrum. Some of us use drugs and alcohol to cope with sexual trauma, but this led to more sexual abuse. Others weren't sexually abused until they were in their addiction. I'm sensitive to this topic as I was sexually abused both before and during my addiction, and I've met many women and men in recovery who were also sexually abused at some point. If you fall under this category and have not yet seen a therapist on this matter, I would highly recommend it. This leads me to an important question. Are you ready for sex? Here are some questions to consider. Are you ready for the emotional attachments that will be created through this act? Are you sure this is a person you want to have sex with? Do you know them well enough to share this vulnerable side of yourself? Or do you just want physical contact and to be held? Some of us have been conditioned to say yes, even when we mean no. When it comes to sex, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Some of you may not be used to asking and expect sex from your partner, but it's mandatory to ask your partner for consent. If they're unsure, it's a no for now. Do not try to convince them. Wait until you find a partner who is enthusiastic about the proposition of having sex with you. Sex is so much more fun this way. Other thoughts to consider about sex. Some people in early recovery voluntarily choose abstinence for a time. This allows for you to get to know yourself better and take the time to heal and grow without the distraction a sexual relationship can bring. Many of us associate sex with being drunk or being high, so the act and all the parts leading up to it may seem a bit awkward at first. Also, at first sex might not seem as good as you remembered without your drug of choice, but that feeling will eventually go away. We now have the ability to be fully present, allowing sex to create a deep connection between you and your partner. With the right partner, it can even be a spiritual experience. Sex can be between two committed partners, but it doesn't have to be. There's nothing wrong with casual sex as long as the parties are on the same page. Just be open and honest with yourself and with your partner. If you want more and all they can offer you is sex, it's time to move on. Otherwise, you're in for a painful journey. Prior to having sex in recovery, get tested for STIs and have an open conversation about sex with your potential partner. If you're not ready to have this talk, you're not ready for sex. Simply remember RBDSM. This is an acronym for relationship status, boundaries, desires, sexual health, meaning, and aftercare. Let's look into these further. Share your current relationship status with each other. Are there any other parties who might be affected if you have sex? Are there any boundaries that either of you have, such as I don't want to be touched here or I don't want to have sex tonight? If your partner has boundaries, be sure to honor those. Share your desires with each other. Of course, see if they're willing to participate in this requested activity. The requests can range from wild to sensual to nurturing, such as massage, dancing, or just being held. If you have any STIs, be honest here, as this is very important to your integrity. Lying or lying by omission will lead to feelings of overwhelming guilt. Having an STI is not a death sentence to your sex life, believe me. Discuss when each of you were last tested, the results, how many partners you've had since, and if condoms were used. What will sex mean for each of you? What type of aftercare would you like? Do you want them to cuddle with you after, spend the night, or check in the next day? After having this talk, you can make an informed decision. Both of you can decide if you still want to have sex, if sex is no longer a good idea, or if you just want to fool around. As people in recovery, we're prone to taking things to their limits, and sometimes we get out of control. Sex, dating, and relationships are easy for us to get carried away with because of the excitement and fantasies that come along with them. If you find this happening to you, see our section on sub-addictions, where we'll explore this topic more. I hope this information will come in handy when you're considering dating, starting a relationship, or having sex. Please head into the Recovery Action Plan, where we'll ask you some questions to help you get to know yourself better around these subjects.